one of like the jazz greats, which is a pretty cool thing, man. I don't think I'd buy that.
I was going to say, Windy Demon, I've been playing for 60 years.
All right, question one. Tell us how you got your start in music, and do you remember your first gig?
Well, I started playing music when I was 15. It was 1995. And there's no musicians in my immediate family. So it was just kind of another thing to do. My parents always wanted me to be busy. So I was always playing sports and doing all kinds of stuff. And then a cousin had a drum set, and I was like, that looks kind of cool, maybe drum lessons. Totally random. Mm-hmm. And started taking drum lessons and enjoyed it. But it was still just kind of this thing. I didn't have any examples of music as a life choice, in my immediate world. But I was so lucky that my first drum teacher, his name is Joe Bergamini, and he was just the local guy. It was really pure luck that there was one drum teacher to go to, and it was him, and I think his teachings and his, composition as a human, really made me want to pursue it and really clicked with me. And so I can't say for sure if it was a different teacher that it would have been something I wanted to pursue, I think he was heavily involved in my excitement and dedication. Mm-hmm. So I think the first gigs were, of course there was like school ensembles. Maybe the first time playing in front of people was an 8th grade talent show, and just me and a guitar player friend, and we played a Green Day song. Mm-hmm. Again, this is 1995. And we played an original song, which was a very very loose description of the noise that we made.
Sure.
But it was really empowering, and it felt great and exciting, you know, in the school gym, right out of like a cheesy movie, you know. And yeah, I just kind of kept my head down and kept going. And again, I didn't have these like external pressures of what a life of music looks like or how it needs to be or how much I need to practice. I was just kind of, you know, just doing it. And I still bring that with me today, actually. I feel lucky that I found music and the drums and try to keep that levity with me. And here we are.
It's awesome, man. Did you know from that point that you wanted to that you wanted to do it professionally at some point?
Definitely not. You know, I played all through high school, and it was fun the whole time. I got myself involved in every possible musical situation at school: marching band, the concert band, the jazz band, the play. If the play needed a drummer, I would do it, and then I would have rock bands on the side. But then I applied to colleges and didn't get in to the jazz programs. And I was on the waiting list at this one school, and I was thinking, well, maybe if I don't get in, I'll just go to some school for whatever normal people go to college for and do that, you know. Eventually I got in after being on the waiting list, and that felt like more of a commitment to the path. But even then, it was like, we'll see if it works. You know, my parents were very supportive. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was never a time where I said, this is what I'm going to do. I still feel like this is what I am doing. There was never a going to do. It's just what I am doing. And it might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I still feel like I think this is what I should be doing.
Sure.
You know, keep that door cracked, you know, because I found this. I feel lucky to have found it. If for some reason I wake up one day and it feels like something else is calling me that feels more of a true expression, maybe I should chase that. I don't know, you know. But I think sometimes the human condition is like we tend to put pressure on ourselves, and maybe sometimes it could be beneficial. It can create drive and goals and all these things, but sometimes there's a really fine line where it could be a detriment too. So for me, I feel like the levity and that kind of approach has been helpful, and I'm just, again, head down, taking each day. It was like, all right, let's, you know, and it continues to reward in that bigger picture feeling, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm just still going.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool answer, man. This is off camera, but we were literally talking about that last night. We have a similar thing. I can resonate with that quite a bit myself. All right. Who are some of your biggest influences from starting out, and then maybe some current influences today?
Yeah, I think all the guys from starting out are still today, for sure. But yeah, it was 1995, so I was really just a product of what was on the radio and what was on MTV when there was still music on MTV. It was, you know, Nirvana and Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers. So Matt Cameron, Dave Grohl, Chad Smith, that kind of, that energy really drew me to the drums. Those were the songs I was trying to play when I was starting out. And that's still at the core of my, you know, relationship with music. And yeah, those guys are still a really important influence. Then I got into jazz, you know, when I started taking lessons and stuff. Joe, my teacher, it was great that he really emphasized a strong foundation. So we checked out different styles. And when I started to get into jazz, it really resonated with me, and that became more of an intentional pursuit. And that's a long list of guys, but Tony Williams and Elvin Jones and Roy Haynes and Art Blakey, Jack DeJohnette, long list. And then just being in New York and checking out more experimental music in the avant-garde scene and more modern guys, you know, that was exciting to get to see these guys up close and really have more like real life examples of what's possible. And that was guys like Jim Black and Jeff Ballard and Bill Stewart or Brian Blade. This is now like right around, I got to college in 99. So in New York, getting to see all these guys, Joey Barron or Dan Weiss or Dave King. And I would just be out every night and watching those guys, you know, this far from them. And it was just incredible. Wow. And then got into electronic music over the years, got into a lot of folkloric musics from around the world and really trying to allow all those influences to come together. So they're all, if the influence is true, you know, it's with you forever. So I really think those guys are still with me and still really, you know, serve as a source of inspiration for sure.
It's awesome, man. Those are some of my favorites too.
Cool.
Have you noticed any differences in the culture of the music community that you came up in versus the culture that appears to be now? Did it feel competitive, welcoming, or did you have a close group that helped share your career early on or helped push your career early on?
I think the biggest difference between then and now is the community only existed in real life because there was no such thing as a digital community.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's beautiful that now with the internet and we can create other kinds of communities and we can feel connected to people outside of your, you know, your living area, but it's a different kind of community. You know, they both have their advantages, but I think the main difference in that beginning is in my more developmental stage is it was just happening in real life, in real time, in the same space as other people, and there's that connection is invaluable and irreversible and just really deeply connected. And so I feel like you can make more friends now, or your community can be bigger, but maybe it doesn't have quite the depth that it had in the past. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's still beautiful to have access to all these other experiences, but there's something so special about if you want to go hear some music, you have to go hear some music. You know? And I think the experiential nature of being in the same room as the guys that you look up to is incredible. You know, I have so many fond memories of that time. And they're like really embedded, you know. So I'm grateful for both versions of the community, but also kind of also grateful for going to school like pre-YouTube or almost borderline pre-cell phone. There were cell phones, but pre-smartphones, say, right? So it's like I have memories of, sound like an old guy, but going to the school library and, you know, getting the VHS tape of Keith Jarrett Trio live in Tokyo or something, and then putting it in the TV and with headphones and just watching Jack DeJohnette play, you know? And it really put me in a particular space to absorb that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah. And of course, being in and around New York and making sure I go see these guys anytime they come through was amazing. Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I feel like an old soul, so I somewhat envy that time.
Yeah, it's because it's really the online experience is really captivating, and it at times really can feel like you're having the actual experience. You're having a version of the experience, but it's not. There's nothing that can compare with being in the same room with that kind of energy, you know. So now, of course, we don't decide when we're born. You know, it's out of our control. That goes without saying. So, of course, I'm so grateful that I can go on YouTube and see John Coltrane play.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and try to have this immersive experience, because I know there isn't any other option. But I think it's important, if there is another option, if the people that you're, you know, are touched by, if they are out there doing it, it's like to really try to remember that, yes, this is great. We have this tool to be able to see them play and learn from them or be inspired by them, but if you can have the experience of being in the same room, there's nothing that touches that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful answer.
Yeah. Well, very rambly, but something.
All right. You've spoken very highly about your drum instructors in the past. Can you share a little about your educational background in music and how it helped shape your playing? I know you kind of answered that earlier, but
Yeah, I mean, my teachers didn't help shape my playing. It is my playing. They are my playing. You know, I arrived to my first lesson empty. You know, it's not, I was really a blank slate. And like I said, Joe Bergamini, my first teacher, I lucked out that he was so organized and the way he delivered the information. He's only 10 years older than me, so he was 25 as I'm a 15 walking in the door. And to imagine, wow, like, really had a shit together, and it was so clear and clean and consistent and heavy emphasis on technique. And I just trusted him. I wanted to do the work. You know, we were on the pad for, you know, a couple months before we got to the drum kit, and I just trusted that pacing and that path. And then as I got more into jazz and more into improvised music, I started studying with John Riley, who really, again, I showed up to him really, you know, I didn't have my own ideas yet. I was relying on other people's ideas, and he helped me develop the tools and confidence to build my own ideas. And it was really those two guys that are the main chunk of the private instruction. I've taken many lessons over the years, but more one or two, and just to get somebody's perspective, and which has been amazing too. But yeah, I went to music school. I went to William Patterson University in New Jersey and studied jazz and had amazing teachers there. And I really think of, you know, I consider a lot of my most, you know, influential heroes to be teachers or mentors or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it requires a formal environment to be teacher, student, you know.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Again, being able to sit next to Jeff Ballard a couple nights a week next to his hi-hat, it's like that's a lesson and more every time. And then, you know, hang out after the gig and ask him a couple questions and see if I can take some stuff home with me. But the playing was really the teaching, you know. And yeah, I am nothing more than a product of those influences, you know.
That's very cool. And your second teacher, he wrote the Art of Bop Drumming.
Exactly.
Correct? Yeah.
Which, yeah, so it's one of, you know, yeah, the Art of Bop Drumming is this impeccable document, and you might think, oh, I want to go study with that guy, to go through the book with the guy who wrote it. And we maybe opened it once, you know, and maybe we peeked at one little cell of a phrase and closed the book and took it and made something new from it. So he's, you know, and has an encyclopedic wealth of knowledge and could go in any musical direction. It was really, really exciting time, for sure.
That's awesome. A similar question. Once you finished your schooling in drum education, what were some lessons you learned pursuing being a working drummer that helped develop your career?
Yeah, so I was lucky that I when I was in school, I met a bass player named Avishai Cohen, and we started playing together a lot. And he was playing with Chick Corea's trio at the time with Jeff Ballard, aforementioned Jeff Ballard. And right after I graduated, he kind of invited me to be in his touring group. And, so I got to go to Europe for the first time, but then we were over there a lot. We were playing a lot of gigs a year, and mostly in Europe, and really got to see the world with him and meet all these other musicians, and spent 6 years with him. We made 5 or 6 records and lots of touring. And it's so much. I kind of think I went to like college, and then I went to Avishai University, and a lot of it had to do with how to behave as a touring musician, in the sense that there are all these temptations, and not even the salacious temptations. There's none of. I'm as boring as it gets on the road. If I have a beer after the show, we're really partying. But just the temptations of you're in a new place, and okay, we're in Paris for 6 hours, and the sound check is in an hour, but we took 2 flights to get here, so we didn't really sleep last night, but I really want to go to Notre Dame. Should I go? It's like, well, I kind of like had to develop this mantra of like, why are you here? I'm here to play a concert tonight. I'm here. What can I do to be at my best on stage tonight? How can I behave in a way that would put me in the best position to play the best I can? Mm-hmm. So it's one thing if you're tired, that's inevitable. It's one thing if you're jet lagged and all those things, but I never wanted to do anything to add to that in a negative way. So it's like, well, as much as I want to go see this, go see some Van Gogh in this particular museum or something, it's in my best interest probably to take a nap until sound check, so that again, why am I here? I'm here to play my best, and what can I do to do that? So have since been to Paris probably 100 times. It sounds insane, but I've been going to Europe for 19 years now, which sounds also insane. And I've been able to see all these places, and there's kind of no rush, and I feel like to keep the eye on the prize of the music has really been a great guide, and just trying to be consistent, bring my best self every night. Your best self can change due to your particular environment, sleep, no sleep. You're in some weird city and you tried the local food and your stomach's all fucked up. Well, you're doing your best, but you give your best, whatever that means in that moment, So bringing a consistent, adventurous spirit to the music, and building trust amongst the band that you'll be able to bring that every night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You're a very wise guy, my friend.
Well, wise guy. Yeah.
All right. You've performed with many of the greats in a wide variety of genres. We talked about this a little bit earlier. But something very cool about you as an artist is that each genre you are placed in, you still sound like yourself while serving the music. Do you have any advice to musicians or drummers on how to serve the music regardless of genre while still holding their own voice as a musician player?
Yeah, sure. This is a big one. I think I try to play regardless of genre. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a kind of a big topic, because I think I understand the value of genre. Mm-hmm. It makes music easier to talk about, or it makes music easier to organize in a record shop. Like, okay, the jazz is over here, and rock is over here, and it makes it's great for music criticism and things like that. Like, I get its function, but I also think what genre does is it tends to emphasize the differences between things. It says, why is this jazz and why is this reggae? It's like we're focusing on the things that are different. And I think that can be a trip that could really, be an obstacle when playing different styles of music, because you're zoomed in on the details of what make things different. And for me, the exercise has been try to focus on the things that are the same. And I think, not to get too big picture, but I think even we do this with people. It's like we focus on the things that make us different from other people, and that can lead to lots of suffering.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you just zoom out a little bit, you realize very quickly, the similarities. And if we try to focus on those things, I think it allows things to come together in a more cohesive way. Mm-hmm. So sitting down to play different kinds of music, to me, if the singular goal is to make the best choices for that music in that moment. So that is void of genre. As we zoom in, we realize, as the choices become more specific, yes, it does, okay, even to, I have this kind of gig tonight, what instrument should I bring? Mm-hmm. Okay, that it gets more specified, but I don't want to leave anything at home, idea-wise, because I don't know what the music is going to need until that moment arrives. So I'm just trying to play from the same place every time I sit down. So when I was younger, it was like, I have my jazz gig tonight. I have to play this way, and I can't bring any of my Matt Cameron influence with me, so I have to leave that at home. But then I'm arriving with 40% of who I am as a person, So I'm not me if I'm not whole, And then if I went to my rock gig, I can't bring my Max Roach influence. So by definition, I'm no longer me if I'm not bringing all of me, So I think the trick is to bring all of yourself and allow it to be available at any moment. Try to have access to all of it. And then you just try to present it in a way that's best for that music.
Yeah.
But I try to avoid the details of any particular choice until the last moment. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Man. Got some inspiring answers, dude. That's very cool. To hear your perspective is very neat.
As long as this goes better than Ash Sohn, I'm happy. Keep that in. Hey, Ash.
All right. There are a lot of drummers who look up to you in your music career. Is there any advice you would give to your younger self or others who are looking to follow a similar path with music?
Just keep going, I think. And try to... try to remember why you started playing in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes I listen back to the way I played when I was 16, and I'm like, I wish I could play that way now. Having nothing to do with musical choices or technique or anything, just the spirit with which I was playing, I just didn't know any better. It was just all this pursuit of bliss and like, wow, this is, there was no other financial or career intention, no other motives other than chasing the bliss of just playing. And I think I do believe I'm an eternal optimist. I do believe that if you follow that path, good things will happen. There are examples of, in a money-driven society, there are examples of people chasing money and getting it, and but to me, I think we can all agree if we wanted money, we could go do something else to figure that out. So for me, it's trying to keep that big picture awareness of that feeling that drew me to music in the first place, and try to chase the situations and inhabit the situations that allow me to continue to taste that feeling, because that's the thing that that's the thing that will get me out of bed in the morning, the possibility of that kind of experience. But money doesn't get me out of bed, or also to leave my home and leave my family. And it's like, money won't do that. It's more the possibility of inhabiting that space, because that's the thing that makes me want to keep doing it, So the irony here is, if I told my younger self would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I guess the advice is very simple: just keep going. Because I think there's only so much you can understand in each moment or each phase of being alive, and sometimes it just takes the time and the experiencing of it to click. So just keep going and good stuff will happen. Yeah.
All right. Probably a similar question, but I'll ask it anyway. Am I speaking up enough?
You.
Okay, all right. In Nashville, a lot of musicians come here and take any gig they can get, whether they want to play that genre or not. It's easy to get stuck playing in the scene that they might not want to settle in. With this, how would you advise someone trying to land a gig they want musically?
I have a contradicted, somewhat kind of. I have an answer for both sides. I like the idea of taking every gig just as a learning experience. But at a certain point, you have to help other people understand who you are, or what you wish to be, or who you wish to be as a musician. And sometimes that requires being a little more selective and trying to deliver a bit more of a clearer message of what you wish for. Because if you play all kinds of music, you're the guy that plays all kinds of music and will continue to get called for that, which could be great, But if there is a clearer wish for a particular kind of music you wish to be making, somehow you need to communicate that. And I think sometimes the easiest way to do that, sometimes it's scary to start to say no to things, but to identify the things that don't fit into that picture and just stop being a part of them. It sends a clearer message of, it implies what you do wish to do, And I think money can be a part of this conversation, an important part. We need money to live. If you need money, I would never fault anyone for playing whatever gigs they say yes to. But I'm also a fan of, if it's just about money, I'm a fan of making money outside of music in order to protect your relationship with music.
That's a great answer.
Right, so I encourage a lot of younger people, if they're like, there's this gig I don't want to do, but I need the money. I was like, man, that is slowly chipping away at this precious relationship with music, So can you bartend for 2 nights a week and just, there's no baggage, you go and you have this experience, you maybe meet some people, I don't know, maybe it's even cool, but it puts the money in your pocket that you might need. And then it's keeping this more safe space, this special relationship with music in a little more pure sense, So yeah, that's kind of a few different answers at once, but try to be more clear about the message you send in regards to what the music you want to be playing. And if it's just about money, don't assume that has to come through music,
Yeah, I was saying that last night too, because I was like, man, you don't ever want to get jaded in the stuff you want it to be. You want it to be something you're very passionate about always. So I think a lot of musicians, probably our age too, get stuck because they just take whatever they can get. which is great. It is, I agree, it can be great. But then a lot of them, if it becomes sour, it'll completely ruin their
Yeah.
taste for music, which is like the reason we got in this shit is because
Exactly.
we love it. You
Exactly.
know? So that's beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You've recently been performing with St. Vincent. Can you share a little bit about what that's been like working with them? And maybe a fun story or two from touring?
Yeah, I mean, so St. Vincent is Annie Clark. She's incredible. I was a fan of her music in advance, but we didn't know each other. So it was exciting to get asked to be a part of her music. And yeah, the band was incredible. We just wrapped up about approximately like a year and a half of touring, plenty of breaks in there. But the first thing we did was Saturday Night Live. So that was last April, still at the height of the pandemic and kind of pre-vaccine, and everyone's still kind of freaking out. And so we rehearsed for a few days in LA, and then that was the first time we're making music together. So it was intense and amazing. But so grateful to meet all these new amazing musicians and kind of be in her orbit. And for me, it's quite different than, like my music would not bring me to the stages we were playing on. So it was particularly exciting to play in a place like Madison Square Garden and things like that, which is, for a kid from Jersey, that's pretty as bucket list as it gets,
Of course.
And also the stark contrast from that world to my world, like to be able to play with my band at the Village Vanguard and a few months later play at Madison Square Garden with her. It's like to me, it makes each one sweeter. It's really exciting. And yeah, I can't say enough great things. Like it was just the whole operation was super high level from top to bottom, and it was just great. I mean, we're playing songs and the songs with parts. There's less obvious improvising than maybe other situations I'm in, but it doesn't mean in any way that any moment is phoned in or not super present. There were still plenty of small choices to be made every night that keep it exciting, and just the energy itself was really infectious and inspiring. So super grateful to be in her world, and yeah, learn so much.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. It is quite a change too, genre-wise, going from jazz, Bowie.
Yeah, totally.
St. Vincent.
Totally.
It is cool. I mean, it sticks with what you said earlier, which is really neat. All right, 4 more for you. You guys still good? Okay. Also, you released a new solo record called The Sound of Listening. Can you share a little about your experience putting that record together?
Sure, yeah. So this is with a band this is the third record of this particular project. It's a quartet that our first record came out in 2015. So, and these are guys I've known for a long time and played together in different situations, but as a quartet, we've been playing since then. And yeah, we did a week at the Village Vanguard in February, so I brought all this new music and we kind of navigated it throughout the week and then went right into the studio and recorded it. So it's kind of a snapshot of, these recordings are more of, a kind of sonic photograph of what the band sounds like in that moment, more in the jazz tradition of, there's lots of improvising. So from take to take, it's going to change quite a bit, but certainly from, it's very much a document of that moment. So I'm just, they're grateful for the guys and such a pleasure to play with them. And this record did include a more kind of compositional element that, the lockdown allowed me to kind of be at home and have a little more introspective time and, bring some different compositional energy to the band. But yeah, it's out in the world, and we just spent a few weeks in Europe last month.
It's awesome.
It was great, and well into next year, a bunch of gigs. So yeah, it feels good.
This is a nerdy drum question, but since
It's inevitable. Let's do
here
it.
it comes. Is there a favorite kit, snare, cymbal you tend to pull the most? Maybe something unique that you use often? Or unique to you that you use often?
Up until a year or two ago, I didn't have, all my drums were new, really. New in regards to in the last 10 years. I started a relationship with Gretsch maybe 12 or I forget when that was, 2008 maybe. So I had one of the first kits I got from them was one of the kits I'm using the most, and that's the kit I had out with Annie on the road. And that's the kit I used on Black Star. That one's getting a bit of it's getting some nice, experiences baked in. But yeah, I do have some older drums now, but I'm not too attached to any one particular kit. I think, like, growing up and the New York scene is great for non-attachment to gear, because most of the times you can't bring your stuff, or it's just you don't want to, or all this stuff. So I actually got a lot of joy from playing different instruments every night, and how quickly can I kind of develop a relationship with a new instrument. That being said, I would always bring cymbals, because that can be a little bit of a dice roll. And most recently, I've been playing the Istanbul AGOP 30th anniversaries, and I have on the recording, The Sound of Listening, I have 3 22-inch 30th anniversary, but they're all completely themselves,
Of course.
and unique in different amounts of rivets and things. So it's been fun to experiment with those. And I feel like, although those are new, they have a lot of depth. They don't feel new. It doesn't feel like a new instrument.
Sure.
So it's been nice to really get to know those, and yeah. So that's where I'm at.
I think it's refreshing. You've said this earlier, that you're not so much a gear guy. But a lot of people that are as successful as you in this thing, they spend a lot of time. Which this stuff, I always view this stuff as just more fun than it is shapes who you are as a player.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to present your best self, right? And we all have a different specific path in order to do that, and some guys feel like they need a very particular instrument to do that, and that's great. But for me, I do take a lot of joy in different instruments and trying to make it feel like a two-way relationship. It's not that here's the thing I do, and whatever's in front of me is going to be at the service of me, I'd like to think, as you're just starting to play, what does the instrument wish for? Where are the best places for it to live tuning-wise, or those things, and try to be open to it being this two-way relationship, and that leading to the best music, as opposed to you being, it being your servant and you're the boss, So,
It's cool.
yeah.
It's actually, I mean, again, not to just flatter you, but I mean, you and Brian Blade are probably the two most talked about jazz drummers, period. And I feel like Brian's the only other person I've talked to that shares that same experience with drums. He doesn't really care what he's playing. And every gig he shows up, whatever he plays, he's just like so grateful to play that piece.
Right.
But he's
I mean,
not
you care as much as anyone, but it just doesn't have to be the same thing.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, that's a better way to.
You know, like you care. The caring is about what gets put into the music.
Yeah.
You know, and you hope. You know, there are some nights where the instrument maybe makes it easier than others.
Sure.
But I love the different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely heard. Do you know Brian personally?
We've hung a little bit. Yeah.
He's really sweet, you know, like yourself, just
Very
very kind human being. But I've heard different stories about him. Like he'll show up to whatever gig and it'll be like a new SJC kit or whatever, and he'll just be like, "Thank you so much. This is the most beautiful thing." You know,
wow.
just whatever. That's like something
Yeah.
that'd be a really hard kit to pull off what you guys do. You know, big huge bass drum.
Right. Right.
Trying to get this little tight jazz tuning with. That's cool. That inspires me. All right, 2 more. Now putting drums aside, you don't have to answer this one if you don't want to, if it's too. But now putting drums aside for a second, can you tell us a little bit about what life looks like outside of music? Possibly some favorite hobbies, or family life, or even the day in the life outside of making music.
Yeah, I mean, from a zoomed out perspective, there is no inside outside music. It's like it's all one expression, you know. I don't know if that sounds a little cheesy or too abstracted, but to me, again, if the goals are the more big picture goals of trying to create something meaningful of an expression that could happen through music or through anything, you know. And I think it's more about a general disposition of, and you know, that, you know, I want to treat the music with the kindness, as much kindness as I want to treat the person at the post office with the kindness, and creating, you know, just this positive expression. And I feel like music, again, is the most deliberate way of that expression for me, but it carries over into, on a good day, into, you know, the day's activities. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I never feel this need to like get away from music because I need some space. It's because it is such a rewarding space. But I will say, in a more zoomed in way, I think it's less drum specific and more based around composition. That's kind of where when I do have a moment of inspiration to seize or some time to practice, it's trying to, you know, get to the piano and work on some new music. Cool. But in general, yeah, just hanging out with my family and trying to, yeah, I mean, you know, day by day, again, head down, trying to be kind and see what happens, you know. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Last question. Can you share with us what might be next? Touring, recording, any new projects that you're able to speak about?
Yeah, so again, the quartet, the band from the most recent record, there's plenty of gigs into next year in the States, and we're going to Tokyo in February for a week. Stuff in the States, then we'll go back to Europe in the summer. It's most of next year will be based around that, but always sprinkled in with collaborations and playing with different people. That to me, it's exciting, again, to have the contrast of different experiences. And yeah, I mean, we're getting back to the Village Vanguard in March, which for me is like, that's Mecca. That's like the mountaintop, you know. So really excited to get back there and get to play for a week. And I have a new batch of music probably for another project that I'll start working on. I have kind of this acoustic world and then a more electronic world where I have made some records. So I think maybe the next statement will be in that context. But it's always kind of bouncing between the two.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. 5 quick answer questions. This is just kind of cheesy and corny for fun.
Great.
5 quick ones. All right. Desert island record.
John Coltrane, A Love Supreme.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a great one. Place or venue you'd like to play that you haven't yet played.
Well, I haven't played here, and I won't play here because the original one is gone. But Giant Stadium in New Jersey, although it's the New York Giants and the New York Jets, of course, the stadium is in New Jersey. And that's kind of the place growing up that I would go to see the huge concerts, you know, to see the Rolling Stones or stuff like that. And it just represents like my youth and the real daydreaming of like, whoa, what if one day, you know, Madison Square Garden also had that for me. But Giant Stadium was this larger than life thing, and they tore it down and built a new one, so it's not quite the same, but
Yeah.
I would still take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this one already, but coffee, beer, or water? Beer right now is out of the equation.
Beer's out. Well, the interesting thing here is that water is in all of these three.
True.
So, no, I would say I'm a coffee fan. It's a fun thing to look forward to in the morning. Yeah.
All right. All-time favorite movie?
Hard to say, just one. For some reason, right now, what just came to mind was Fight Club, which I know is a very kind of like masculine answer, but I would urge everyone, if you're interested, to read the book, because I really love the author Chuck Palahniuk, and the movie is incredible, but the book is really stunning, and that sent me actually into his whole canon of work, and I was really inspired by his writing.
I read that book too.
Very good.
Better than the movie. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Last one. If you weren't a drummer, first profession that you would choose?
Wow, first profession.
It's hard, especially after hearing how much you love music.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know, what would you guys be? Yeah, help me out. Yeah, I think, wow, what would I be? Just some guy. I don't see. All right, I'm gonna cop out and give you a non-answer answer. The way in which I stumbled upon music was so seemingly out of my control and accidental, but therefore organic and intuitive, that before I was a musician, if you asked me what would you be, I didn't have an answer. So it wasn't this intention that I then chased. So I feel like it's really hard for me to answer, because I would hope the thing that I would be would unfold in a similar way. Yeah. You know, it wouldn't have this really clear intention first, and then you go and you work for it. So therefore, I'm giving a very disappointing non-answer, but I do believe that you know, the natural unfolding of that, the right stuff happens in that way. So I could say something like, you know, the owner of a jet ski rental company or something, but that would be pretty artificial and random. I would like to believe that whatever it was just kind of, you know, presented itself. And if you are open to receiving that kind of those messages, then that's when you can identify it. But
yeah,
that's
a way better answer.
Well, I'm saying, I don't know if it's better, but it's what comes to mind now.
It's a very freeing answer.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much, Mark.
Great, my
for doing
pleasure.
this. It was a blast. Thank
Yeah,
you.
now I'm just going to play another little solo, if that's all right.